Today we are counting down the 11 sailing boats projected to become completely worthless by 2026. From budget cruisers that bleed cash to classics betrayed by hidden defects, these models share one thing: owning them will wreck your wallet, not deliver adventure. Our ranking exposes the worst offenders, picked for catastrophic depreciation, costly repairs, and market red flags that only the uninformed ignore. What boat opens the countdown with the most deceptive bargain? Let us start with number 11. MacGregor's 26X promised the best of both worlds: a sailboat with a built-in outboard and the speed of a small powerboat. For many buyers, that pitch sounded irresistible, but the numbers tell a different story. In 2000, a typical MacGregor 26X sold for $15,000. By 2024, that same boat struggles to fetch $1,500, with projections dropping to just $500 by 2026. The financial fallout is not just theoretical. John D. in Florida bought a 1995 MacGregor 26X for $3,000, hoping for affordable fun. After pouring in another $5,000 on repairs, he managed to sell the boat for only $1,200 2 years later, losing $6,800 in the process. The culprit is more than just a soft market. It is the boat's lightweight build and hybrid design, which leave it outclassed by both true sailboats and reliable powerboats. Depreciation starts the moment you hitch it to your trailer, and the so-called budget versatility becomes a trap that drains your net worth year after year. The Irwin 38's reputation took a serious blow after a keel failure during a Florida regatta in October 2022. 2 crew members suffered injuries as the boat capsized, raising urgent questions about the structural soundness of aging fiberglass cruisers. Brokers and surveyors tracked the fallout. Within months, average resale prices for the Irwin 38 slid from $30,000 to $22,000, a drop of nearly 30%. By 2024, most listings struggled to break the $4,000 mark, and projections for 2026 point to values bottoming out at just $1,000. For owners like Mark T. in California, the consequences were personal and costly. After buying his Irwin 38 for $8,000 and putting $12,000 into hull repairs, he sold for only $2,500, losing $17,500 in 3 years. The incident hammered home a harsh reality. When a boat's safety record comes into question, the market reacts fast, and the financial pain lingers long after the headlines fade. On paper, the Formosa 41 looks like a classic blue water cruiser, but reality has caught up with these aging hulls. The biggest problem is not how they sail. It is what happens when something breaks. Original mast and spar sections were proprietary, built in small batches and discontinued decades ago. Today, even the most diligent owner cannot source a certified replacement. Maintenance logs from charter fleets show a steady rise in downtime, all traced back to failed rigging and obsolete hardware. In 1990, a Formosa 41 could fetch $25,000 on the used market. By 2024, that number had dropped to $3,000, with brokers warning of a further plunge to just $800 by 2026. The story of Tom L. in Florida brings the problem into sharp focus. When his mast base cracked in 2023, no OEM part existed. He paid $2,500 for a 3D printed replacement, but insurers refused coverage because Yun certified hardware voids offshore policies outright. Without insurability, the boat's value collapses, leaving owners with a heavy, beautiful liability. The parts orphan status of the Formosa 41 turns every repair into a gamble, and the market has already priced in the risk. Surveyors rarely pass a Payship PY26 without finding trouble just beneath the surface. Moisture meter readings routinely spike above 30% across the decks, revealing a hidden world of waterlogged core and delamination. Soft spots are so common that many survey reports flag entire sections of the foredeck as unsafe to walk on. For buyers, it is a financial trap. The average hull fetches $3,000 at auction, but a professional wrecker job starts at $20,000 if you can even find a yard willing to take it on. That number does not include the cost of stripping hardware, replacing stanchion bases, or repairing cosmetic damage from the process. Most insurers and lenders refuse coverage for Payship PY 26 boats with any sign of core rot, making resale nearly impossible. As a result, these boats are increasingly sold for parts, not for cruising. On paper, the Payship PY 26 is an affordable entry to sailing. In reality, it is a structural money pit that leaves owners facing a choice between a 5-figure repair or a one-way trip to the scrapyard. Benetou's Oceanus line, especially models built between 2005 and 2015, has become a cautionary example of how even modern sailboats can lose their value almost overnight. The core problem sits deep in the hull, a glued-in grid known as the keel matrix, designed to spread loads from the keel and mast. When that grid delaminates from the hull, often after a hard grounding or years of flex, it compromises the boat's entire structural integrity. Repairing a failed grid is not minor maintenance. Surveyor estimates put the cost between $12,000 and $35,000, depending on the extent of the damage and whether the keel needs to be dropped. Some 2011 Oceanus hulls, particularly those from charter fleets, have been auctioned off for less than $115,000, far below their outstanding loan balances, after insurers wrote them off as total losses. Banks and finance companies now routinely refuse loans on Oceanus models with unresolved matrix issues, and insurance underwriters require full documentation of repairs before even considering coverage. For owners, this means a modern, high-priced cruiser can become unsellable and uninsurable within a single survey cycle. The rapid collapse in value is not about age, it is about a design fault that turns a 6-figure asset into a financial dead end. Catalina 30 models still draw crowds at the dock, but surveyors know what to look for. Hairline cracks at the keel joint, a telltale curve known as the Catalina smile, signal a much bigger problem: water intrusion at the keel stub, often paired with chainplate corrosion and deck core rot. Survey reports from 2022 onward show moisture readings above 35% around chainplates and stanchions, with repair estimates that quickly spiral. A deck recore costs $8,000 to $17,000, while fixing the keel joint adds another $4,000 or more. Chainplate replacements can cost $5,000 to $10,000, especially when core rot has spread. Insurers have responded by issuing exclusion notices, and any Catalina 30 with unrepaired core or keel issues is now flagged as uninsurable in most markets. For owners, that means a beloved classic can become a stranded asset overnight, with auction values dropping below $8,000 for boats that once sold for double. Nostalgia does not pay for repairs or insurance, and the hidden faults in Catalina 30 models have made them a financial trap for the unwary. CSY's 44 Walkover was once pitched as the ultimate live-aboard cruiser, but owner experience tells a different story. Inside, the split-level layout divides the boat with an awkward walkover bridge, forcing everyone to climb outside just to move between cabins. What sounds unique on a brochure turns into daily frustration for anyone living aboard. Broker listings from 2024 show CSY 44s lingering on the market for months, often priced 30% below other 44-footers with similar hull conditions. Buyers hesitate, not because of rot or delamination, but because the ergonomics make the boat exhausting to live with long-term. Owner testimonials describe the interior as clunky and isolating, with poor ventilation and wasted space that makes even simple tasks, like preparing a meal or carrying laundry, feel like a chore. The cost to fix these issues is staggering. Quotes for an interior reconfiguration routinely top $25,000, and that is before tackling any cosmetic upgrades. Most refits involve gutting the entire saloon and rebuilding the companionway, a job that few yards are willing to take on. Brokers admit they often steer clients away, knowing the resale market is allergic to the walkover's design. Even well-maintained hulls are discounted deep, and the livability penalty has become a silent destroyer of value. For anyone thinking about a CSY 44 walkover, the numbers and the owner complaints add up to a clear warning: comfort matters, and no amount of structural soundness can save a boat that is miserable to live with. Morgan's Out Island 41 draws attention at every marina with its broad beam and cavernous interior. Yet beneath that generous space lies a flaw that seasoned sailors spot instantly: the shallow, full-length keel. On paper, it promises stability and easy grounding. In practice, it turns upwind, sailing into a test of patience. Owner logs and race records show the same pattern. They struggle to point higher than 60 degrees and fall behind even smaller boats in any breeze. The Out Island 41's reputation as a floating condo is not just a joke among racers, it is a warning for anyone who actually wants to sail. The market has caught on. Listings for the Out Island 41 now sit untouched for months, often priced more than 25% below a Catalina 40 of similar condition. Brokers quietly admit that buyers walk away once they read the owner forums or see the polar plots. For those hoping to fix the problem, reality bites even harder. Retrofit quotes for deeper keels or upgraded rudders routinely top $15,000, more than the boat's resale premium over a tired 36-foot boat. Surveyors report that most attempts to improve performance barely move the needle, and insurance underwriters have grown wary of boats with non-factory modifications. The Out Island 41's size and comfort cannot offset its sailing handicap. As more buyers prioritize handling and performance, the once popular Morgan slips further down the list, caught between the cost of retrofits and the stigma of poor upwindability. For anyone thinking about long-term value, the numbers speak for themselves. Big hull, small performance, and a shrinking pool of buyers willing to gamble on either. O'Day 28 and 34 hulls, once a staple of American marinas, now face a grim fate. Surveyors and brokers have watched the market for these boats collapse over the last decade, as core rot and water intrusion turn once affordable cruisers into landfill candidates. Salvage yards across the East Coast report a steady stream of O'Days arriving for disposal, especially after major hurricane seasons. The economics are impossible to ignore. A professional survey for one of these hulls often runs $800 or more, while the average listing price has sunk below $5,000. In many cases, the cost of confirming whether a boat is even worth saving exceeds the boat's actual value. Online classifieds tell the same story. O'Day 28s and 34s routinely appear for free or at scrap value, with owners admitting defeat after failed attempts to sell. Since 2018, dozens of these boats have been stripped for parts, crushed, or simply abandoned, their fiberglass hulls destined for landfill. Maintenance costs are only part of the problem. As the pool of buyers shrinks, even well-kept examples struggle to find a second life. What was once an entry ticket to cruising now represents a total loss for owners, and the financial trap is set before the first surveyor ever steps aboard. Pearson 30s and 36s once held a reputation as honest, no-nonsense cruisers, but the chemistry of aging fiberglass has rewritten their story. The problem is osmosis, with water molecules working their way through gel coat, forming blisters that can spread across the hull like a rash. Surveyors now treat these blisters as a red flag, and many hulls are labeled "not worth survey" before the first tap hammer is raised. Owners hoping for a simple fix are in for a shock. Professional quotes for a full hull peel and epoxy barrier job range from $12,000 to $30,000, often more than the boat's entire market value. In 2024, dozens of Pearson 30s and 36s were listed as parts boats after buyers walked away from six-figure repair estimates. Brokers increasingly refuse to take these listings, knowing that even nostalgia cannot overcome a failed moisture meter or a hull pocked with soft blisters. Since 2024, the market has been flooded with Pearsons stripped for hardware and left to languish in boatyards, their classic lines no match for the relentless march of chemistry. For anyone still tempted, the numbers are impossible to ignore. The cost to repair a blistered hull now dwarfs any chance of resale, and the once proud Pearson pedigree cannot outrun the science of fiberglass decay. The Hunter 37. Legend once promised affordable cruising with modern lines and a roomy interior. By the late 1980s, hundreds of these boats filled charter fleets from the Caribbean to the Chesapeake. Yet by 2026, the same model faces a perfect storm of oversupply, plunging prices, and insurance rejection, making it the single riskiest buy on the used market. The trouble started quietly in 2022, when several large charter operators began offloading their aging fleets. Hunter 37 Legends, once the backbone of their bareboat programs, appeared in bulk on auction sheets. Brokers tracking the sales noted a sharp shift. Where a clean example fetched $40,000 just a decade earlier, now tired ex-charter hulls struggled to attract bids above $5,000. By late 2023, some auction lots closed out at barely $1,200 per boat, and private sellers found themselves anchored to these rock-bottom comparables. The resale market froze. Listings that once turned over in weeks now sat untouched for months, even as asking prices dropped below $3,000. This sudden glut hit just as insurers began reevaluating risk. Internal memos from major marine underwriters, dated early 2024, flagged the Hunter 37 Legend for repeated claims tied to deck leaks, chainplate corrosion, and underbuilt rigging. One insurer advisory, circulated to brokers across the Southeast, warned that premiums for this model could double within a year, and that coverage might be refused outright for boats with prior storm or grounding damage. By the start of 2025, multiple owners reported premium hikes of 100% or more, with some policies canceled after routine surveys uncovered moisture or minor structural flaws. Without insurance, owners faced a hard reality. Marinas and lenders now require active coverage for dockage and financing, leaving uninsured boats stranded at anchor or in storage yards. The core problem runs deeper than just numbers on a spreadsheet. The Hunter 37 Legend's lightweight hull and modest tankage, once seen as selling points for weekend sailors, have become liabilities for anyone considering offshore work. Surveyors note that the deck construction relies on balsa core, notorious for water intrusion and hidden rot. Charter logs from the 2010s detail recurring issues: soft decks, leaking port lights, and electrical system failures, many of which were patched just enough to keep boats in service. Now, with the fleet aging and the best hulls long sold off, what remains are boats with uncertain maintenance histories and a shrinking pool of qualified repair yards willing to take them on. For private sellers, the fallout is brutal. Auction data from 2023 shows that even well-maintained Legends cannot escape the gravitational pull of bulk liquidation prices. A seller in Annapolis listed his 1989 model for $9,500 after a full refit, only to watch it languish for 6 months before accepting $1,400, barely enough to cover the slip fees. Brokers confirm that the auction comps have become the new ceiling, not the floor, and that buyers now expect further discounts to offset looming insurance hurdles. Looking ahead, the projections are grim. Marine economists tracking depreciation curves expect sales under $1,000 to become the norm by 2026, especially as more ex-charter hulls hit the market and insurers tighten restrictions. The Hunter 37 Legend faces not just one failure mode, but a convergence of oversupply, structural concerns, and insurance exclusion that together erase its value. For anyone tempted by a bargain price, the warning is clear. What looks like a cheap ticket to cruising is, in reality, a one-way trip to financial loss. By 2026, the Hunter 37 Legend stands as the textbook example of a boat that has become almost impossible to sell, insure, or even give away. Across all 8 entries, one truth stands out. In sailing, obsolescence is not just about age, it is about economic reality, catching up with outdated promises. As costs rise and support vanishes, these vessels become liabilities, not escapes. This pattern is not unique, it is accelerating across the industry. In 2026, knowing what to avoid is as valuable as knowing what to chase. Sail smart, not sentimental. Drop your thoughts below. What boats should buyers be wary of next?